My name is Dave Emnett. I'm the co-founder and chief operations officer here at OZE. OZE is on a mission to build 100 million profitable small businesses across Africa and close that $331 billion small business credit gap that we know exists for our micro and especially our micro and small businesses. OZE was started by us trying to answer the design question, how might we help small businesses grow and how might we do that at scale? Right. It was founded as a spin-off of a nonprofit business accelerator called Dare to Innovate. And through that organization, we trained thousands of young entrepreneurs. And what we realized is if you want to solve the youth unemployment problem on the continent, the best way to do that is to help small businesses grow and create more jobs. And we realized that you can only train so many individuals in entrepreneurship in a meaningful way at a time. Maybe 10, 20, 50 you can put in a room and train in a meaningful way. So the question was really, how do we do that at scale, right? And how do we provide entrepreneurs with the tools that they need to actually grow their business? The majority of our businesses, maybe started using a paper ledger book, right? Which, don't get me wrong, businesses have been using paper and pen to keep their financial transactions for thousands of years, right? Yeah. But we have a smartphone in most people's hands these days, right? So now there's a better way to keep your financial records. Yeah. If talking about the small business credit gap, right? 90% of all businesses are those smaller micro businesses, right? And the reality is that most of them can't get the financing that they need to invest, grow, or hire, for their businesses. So if we can create a digital solution that can not just help the small businesses that are, operating in our cities. And there's a small village in the north of Ghana, actually, where we have something like 50 businesses using our app. We're looking at the data and we saw, wow, there's 50 businesses in this village that are using our app, right? So that's the power of, a digital solution that can reach these areas, not just the cities. The two most important reasons, what I think, right, why most small businesses fail rather than grow. The first is poor financial record keeping, right? Which is what we're solving with our business app. Small businesses can use our app to record sales and expenses, send invoices and receipts, access even an AI coach, right? That tells you how your business is doing. The second reason that more small businesses fail than grow is access to capital. Now, the access to capital issue is, it brings us back to the small business credit gap, right? Now, this credit gap exists for a couple of different reasons, right? The first is lenders, banks, microfinances don't have access to the reliable financial data that they need to accurately assess the risk of a small businesses. So that comes back to, helping them create digital financial records. And what that does actually is that it makes them price a loan too high, right? So they price it almost too high that a small business can't afford it. Now, the other problem that we see is on the lender side, right? The financial infrastructure that they use is not good enough. It's improving every day, right? But maybe you have one or two credit bureaus in each country, but the coverage of those credit bureaus isn't always so good. So when a small business applies for a loan and they run them through the credit bureau, may not be a credit history for them there, right? We're still seeing the systems of open banking, right, really evolve. So financial institutions are now able to share their data a little bit. And then the other important thing where the infrastructure is not quite there yet is the payment systems, right? So it's still a bit fragmented, right? You might not be able to have payment data from a PSP and a POS and get that data in the same place, right? And so what that really means is that for the lenders, the cost of assessing a small business for a loan is too high relative to the size of a loan that a small business would normally take, right? The threshold of the loan. So for me, those are the two real reasons why that small business credit gap exists. The unreliable financial data, which we're solving with the small business app, and the financial infrastructure, which we're solving with our lending management system, which we haven't talked about yet. Yeah, so we take a systems approach, right? So we solve the unreliable financial data with the business app. Right. So the small businesses can record their digital financial records and then the banks can use that data to assess the business. The other side is the financial infrastructure. So what we've done is we've built a lending management system that is powered by a credit scoring engine. Now it's a machine learning proprietary credit risk algorithm that banks can use. And it's specifically designed and trained on small business data. So when you assess a small business, you're using our platform, the lending management system, you get access to the credit scoring model. And then you get access to a bunch of other automations along the way. So automated digital loan application, right? Automated assessment, automated disbursement, right? All the way through the entire digital lending lifecycle. And what that does is it drives the cost down for the lender. So it's much cheaper then for the lender to assess a small business for whether or not they should, give them a loan. And then they're able to lend profitably to those small businesses. So when you put those two pieces together, that's how we're bridging the gap, especially in a country like Ghana, right? Where mobile money is just growing and growing every year. And most small businesses, if you talk to them, they're dealing in still a lot of cash, right? Yeah. But if they're not using cash, they're using mobile money, right? And so the ability for a small business to receive a loan disbursement into their mobile money wallet, right? Or to make loan repayments into a mobile money wallet. It makes it so much easier, right? And I imagine, we're not operating yet in East Africa, but in markets in East Africa where mobile money is huge, I imagine, that would be really beneficial there as well. It's such an important issue that small businesses deal with on a day-to-day now, really. The first thing is that we secure ourselves, right? OZE is ISO 27001 certified, right? We have an ISMS system set up in place. And so, if the data that we're keeping for those small businesses in our cloud servers is not secure, then we got to solve that, right? And so we've done that, and that's the first thing that's really important. The other thing that I think is super important is education, right? You won't believe some of the stories that I've heard from small businesses of cases of fraud, right? And it happens to me every day. I get phishing emails all the time trying to get me to send them money, right? So the first thing is education. So we do things like we have this fraud quiz, right? We send it out to our small business. We say, take this quiz, see what your score is. Understand, are you actually protecting yourself from the dangers that exist in the digital world? So we do a lot of things like that, and we do a lot of training. So every month we have a workshop that our small businesses can attend for free. And sometimes we cover things like information security, right? What are the simple things you need to do, like put a password on your phone? You won't believe how many people don't have a password on their phone.
Valid.
And it's simple things like that. And I think the stat is if you have two-factor authentication, you resolve 99% of the potential attacks that you might have, right? So there are very simple, practical things that small business owners can do. And we try to make sure that they're aware of those things and they'll put those things into practice. So typically, we want a small business to be on the platform for 30 days, right? And we want them to record at least 30 transactions. And they need to have recorded transactions recently, right? You can't just jump on the platform, or I guess the way to say it is you jump on the platform, you wait 6 months, and then when you need it, you haven't recorded any transactions to your platform. It doesn't really work that way. The good thing is that we have our credit risk algorithm, right? And our credit risk algorithm assesses like 160 different data points. And one of those things is bank statements, or in the case of Ghana, mobile money statements, right? So as part of the loan application, those things would be submitted, and they really help when it comes to assessing a small business. So even if they don't have a ton of data that they've been recording in the app or that they've been pulling in the app through one of the integrations, we can still do a really good job of assessing the risk of lending to that small business. So yeah, all of those different things really help. Well, the first thing I think is access to no collateral loans, right? All of the loans that we do, no collateral, right? You don't have to provide a shop as collateral. You don't have to provide a car as collateral. Those businesses are very mobile. They're doing business out of the trunk of their car, maybe, right? Or maybe at home, the kitchen table, and then they go out and they move somewhere else. And so I think just the fact that all of our solutions are digital, right, really helps. You don't need to have a cash register somewhere in an office. You have your phone, right? And you collect mobile money payments. You record the transactions, right in the palm of your hand, right? So I think that really helps. And then, as far as access to capital, getting access to capital is not necessarily about, are you in one place, right? Yes, we need a verifiable address, right, to really lend to someone. But as long as you can provide something that you come back to on a consistent basis, it's okay. Yeah, so the first thing is we take impact very seriously, right? And one of the things we did recently was we worked with one of our investors, African Invest, and the Bridgespan Group, to calculate our impact multiple of money or multiple of impact, right? And it's a way for investors to assess the impact that their investments are having at the same level of rigor as the financial returns that they need to have, right? And so when we calculate that, what we found is that for every dollar invested in OZE, we generate 36 times the impact. And what it means is you have a tailor in Lagos, right? Who, you get your kaftan for your next event. They used to be getting 21% interest rates on loans. Now they can get 3% because they're using OZE. And so because things of that, we've generated 102 million euros in interest savings already, right? For small businesses like that tailor. For women, right? Because this is super important. Women are in particular a segment that are very underserved. And what we've done for unlocking opportunities for small businesses is 23 million in opportunities that we've unlocked for women entrepreneurs. Right. So when you have a multiple of impact, you can calculate numbers like that, yes, right? That tell you the interest savings that you're having for a small business, that tell you the opportunities that you're unlocking for women entrepreneurs. And so that's how seriously we take impact at OZE. It's a big number, but if you have a dream, if you have a vision, it doesn't make sense to have a small number, right? Yeah. But I would say we're well on our way, right? Our biggest customer is EcoBank, right? And we power the technology behind EcoBank's merchant cash advance, e-merchant cash advance, no collateral digital advance for small businesses. Okay. Now we are launching that project with EcoBank in all, I think it's like 35 of their markets, okay. African markets, right? Okay. So if you can imagine the impact, if you can, take the power of EcoBank, the power of the capital that they have in place and give loans to small businesses in all of those countries, you're going to start getting very close to that 100 million number. And in addition to that, our small business app is growing very, very fast. It's just a really pressing need for small businesses, right? You need to know, how's my business doing, right? Sure. Because there are so many businesses who they don't know, right? They're managing their business with their gut, which is usually pretty good, honestly, the small businesses that I talk to. But if you can, in the palm of your hand, tell you, yes, my business was profitable today. Yes, my business was profitable this week. Yes, my business has been profitable for the last 6 months running. Or my business is not profitable, right? You can make the better decisions that you need to really take your business to the next level. I mean, the first thing is keeping digital financial records, right? If you show up to a bank with notebooks, they're going to have to get out that calculator and really calculate before they can tell if they can give you access to capital, right? Yeah. So the first thing, digital financial record that they can then take, they can download a report and take it to a lender, right? And it doesn't have to be our lender, right? They can take it to any lender they want. The second thing I think comes back to the education piece, right? We really try to do in all the markets that we are in, education on how to do your taxes, right? As a small business, or how to register your business, because we do work with a lot of informal businesses who haven't yet registered. So it's important to do the education bit as well. As far as the different industries, you're 100% right. I talked to a business owner the other day who is probably dealing in 6 different industries, right? Because at the end of the day, they need to make money, right? So they're going to put money wherever they think they can make money. And so I think one of the cool things about our application is access to a business coach, right? And these are MBA level business coaches, right? And then now they have the power of AI that's helping them give recommendations to these businesses. And so these coaches can kind of guide you around, okay, now let's really look at the numbers. If you're doing 6 different businesses, what are the 3 maybe you should be focusing on, or the 2, right? Because focus is power, really. If you focus on the ones that are bringing you the most numbers, and honestly, the ones that you're passionate about, right? That's where you're going to have success. So I think that's the other thing that's really important. Any business owner, especially startup founders like myself, we want the regulations to be business friendly, and we want them to be digital. We don't want have to go and submit a stack of paperwork to get a license at a regulator, right? And honestly, Bank of Ghana has done a really good job of that. They have a very nice digital system, and I think that stuff is really important. The startup ecosystem, I think, is only improving in Ghana and Nigeria as well. Really, Ghana and Nigeria have really strong startup ecosystems, and you're starting to see the startup ecosystem appear in other West African countries as well, from Benin to, you're even seeing Togo a little bit. So I think anything the government can do to support those startup ecosystems is very important. And some startups, especially the earlier stage ones, need support on a governance level, right? Anytime that you see a scandal or an issue, right, it erodes investor confidence in the industry. So you want to make sure that we're supporting all startups to set their companies up in the right way, to have the right board structure, to have the right shareholder structure, so that we make sure we're doing things the right way. Other than that, I think we're all about small businesses, right? So the more the government can do to create initiatives that will help not just the small businesses themselves, but the organizations that are supporting those small businesses, the lenders, the KYC providers, whoever it is, that's going to be a big win as well. For OZE, I'd say but in the next 3 years, we want to double what we're doing, right? Okay. We're trying to get to 100 million, right? So we take whatever the number is now and we double it in the next 3 years. I think in the next 3 years, we'll be in many, many more markets with EcoBank, and you'll see the impact of the loans that we're doing through them in many different markets. We're also about to launch several other partnerships with other lending partners. So I'm very excited to see, how those partnerships grow as well. Yeah. Our CEO is a woman. Yeah. And she's very passionate about making sure that we have female-led initiatives, not within the company, but also in the work that we're doing. And it's interesting, we work with a lender, and this lender is specifically focused on giving loans to small businesses. women-led small businesses. And the reality is, and actually you see this in our portfolios, is that women are better borrowers than men in most cases, right? True. Depending on industries and segments and stuff like that. And you know, women are really the heartbeat of our homes, right? And you really need to support the work that they're doing. So I think the more that we can design specific loan products that meet the needs of women, the better off we're going to be.